Hi there. Welcome to the Why We Horror podcast on Halloween, this time to discuss the movie John Carpenter's Halloween. We like to dive in deep to horror films and discover why we horrored in the first place. A couple trigger warnings. This is a film that is very murdery and is outrageously horny. So if those things bother you, uh, listen anyway, because that helps. My name is Matt, and I'm going to hit everybody with an icebreaker question. Do you prefer to be tricked or treated on Halloween? I.e., do you like to do the scaring or not that and just get the candies? I like to scare people. It's fun. Um, let's move on to.
I'll go first. I like to be treated. I guess I like
You like to
candy.
be treated,
Yeah, I like candy.
and your name is.
Jay. My name is Jay, by the way.
Thank you.
I can go next. I also like to be treated. I've not done much scaring at all, uh, but candy's good. And I'm Will.
All
And
right.
I'm Lillian, and I also like to trick Matt. I was a scare actor one time, and it was a lot of fun, and I would do it again.
That sounds fun. That's the dream. I want to work in a haunted house one year. All right, so this episode we are covering, like I said before, John Carpenter's Halloween. That's a very important distinction, and also something he requested uh, in order to make the movie. He wanted his name ahead of it. Directed by John Carpenter, written by John Carpenter and Debra Hill. Cast starring Donald Pleasence, Jamie Lee Curtis, Nancy Loomis, PJ Soles, and Charles Cyphers. Cinematographer is the great Dean Cundey. Score John Carpenter. And edited by Tommy Wallace, who would later go on and direct the It miniseries, Halloween 3. He's had a substantial career. And Charles Bornstein. A brief synopsis of this film is it's about an escaped mental patient who returns to the scene of a terrible crime 15 years after murdering his sister and stalks a couple of babysitters on Halloween night. Let's first talk about what we thought about this film. Does anybody want to give their thoughts? Lillian, was this your first time viewing?
It was my first time. I enjoyed it. I could very much. I've studied a lot of horror films, which is kind of silly considering I've never seen this one. And it has so many of the like I guess what we would call now like the stereotypical horror tropes, and these are kind of the building blocks for those stereotypes coming to fruition. And I thought it looked great. I thought the audio was like interesting to me, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was good classic horror movie.
Yeah, it really is kind of one of those movies that has, in a weird way, outlived its own relevancy in that when it came out, it was so fresh, so stunning, but it has been copied so many times that it just kind of falls apart a little bit. Um, because by today's standards, it's not nearly as effective. But that's not necessarily my stance on the movie either. I'll get into mine quick. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Will, let's hear you.
Yeah. Um, I think this is probably, oh man, this is probably the fifth or sixth year that I've watched Halloween. So it's got to be one of my go-to movies, but also one of my favorite movies. Just in terms of the origin and like I love the story. That's part of the reason I watch it every year. But also the tradition element of just like this is a classic Halloween film. Um, so it's definitely a go-to for me. But yeah.
Jay, what was your kind of base thoughts?
I I watched this movie just last Halloween last year after my string of Friday the 13th marathons. And honestly, I was surprised at how much I forgot about the movie since watching it just a year ago. Like there's so many little things that I don't remember from watch to watch that are really fun. Overall, I really like Halloween. I think it's very simplistic, and I think that's part of what makes it. The story is simple, the premise is simple, but everything else that goes into it, there's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it. Everything is very meticulously planned out. You can tell. And you're right. I think everything that's been done today kind of stems back to that. And even when we talk about the lighting and stuff like that, I was watching it and I'm like, even the nighttime scenes that are very blue, that traditional like blue light for horror movies, that's probably one of the they've probably done it before, but that's one of the first times I think I could look back and see like, oh wow, this is the first time they did that, or this is like the first time we get like a final girl in a movie or what have you. So I like Halloween a lot. I think it's a very fun movie. It's very tame too. Like maybe back then, I thought some people would probably think it was a lot, but watching it now, I'm like, this is a pretty tame movie as far as like slashers go. So
it's fairly like it plays more like a thriller than a slasher, right?
Oh,
like you
yeah.
see very little knife action, more like just suggestion of knife.
Yeah.
Whereas the sequels went kind of all in on the gore factor to their detriment, I think. But yeah, I like this movie. I think that the one thing this movie makes the most interesting, it feels slow by today's standards with other slasher films, but that's because we think of it as a slasher. It's more of a slow burn, right? Where in the very opening scene, you see a girl getting killed from the point of view of the killer, and you see the threat level. After that, the movie kind of does the thing that movies tell you not to do, which is tell, don't show. They're never really showing the threat level again. They're just, you've seen it once, and then you're just being told constantly how this is the worst human being to ever walk the planet. He's constantly dangerous. And that stretches for like an hour as the coil kind of tightens up until that last 20-minute segment where the coil springs, and it's just pretty constant, like visceral horror. And I think that's where the movie really comes together, is in that last half hour. But yeah, it's one that I like, but I don't necessarily love like a lot of people do. I have quite a few problems with it, which we'll kind of touch on when we go more deep into the analytical themes. But I do really want to give the props to the lighting as well. It has like a very autumnal feel. There's a lot of like warm yellows and oranges that are juxtaposed against like the harsh blacks and like pale blue. And yeah, it kind of does set up what you think of for Halloween just visually. With only 3 pumpkins to their disposal. They filmed this in April, apparently, and couldn't find any gourds. But so I'm going to move into the more of the analytical themes and the talking points at this point. But before I do that, I just want to pour one out for the character that I think gets it the worst and nobody recognizes it, and that's poor Lindsey Wallace. It was her house that was the stage of the crime scene where 3 people die and they get staged in some random room in that poor little girl's house. Not to like mention the fact that her parents probably have to give up that house and wonder what kind of depravity was happening in that house to have like 3 basically naked people, bodies just found. And nobody ever touches this again in any Halloween movie. They focus on the little boy, or they focus on, like, she comes back in 2 of the David Gordon Green ones, but not even talking about what happened. Like, that girl needed help. She's the next Michael Myers.
There's a whole headstone in her house, dude. Like coming home to see
I know, right?
a whole just a whole tombstone in her bed. I'd be like, what? It's all this dirt, dead bodies everywhere.
I feel like I'd be more mad about the closet that just gets absolutely obliterated.
Right? That poor family. All right, moving on. I want to touch on the sex and violence of this film, because this film does something that I think is kind of gross, which it conflates sex and violence in a way that is like really problematic. All the while, this movie is just like the horniest movie I've ever seen.
It's
Like,
awful. It's awful.
the characters won't stop being horny to the point where I'm uncomfortable.
They're like teenagers, but still, like, it's just the only one who's not bad is probably Jamie Lee Curtis's character, because she's like the book smart, like good girl babysitter. And even she's like, I can't believe you told him that I have a crush on him. It's like, you have more things to worry about than this right now. Like,
it's true. Yeah, I like, even the kills in this movie sound horny. Like,
oh my god, the opening scene's so bad. I was watching it and Amanda's like, why does it sound like she's having sex, dude? Because she's like, I don't even want to do it.
Yeah, that guy in the beginning was the original Minuteman.
Dude.
Like the dog he kills, Annie's response to him killing the dog was, "Oh, he must have just found a hot date." As Michael Myers is strangling this dog, and then he does it again to her in the car. And then he does it again to PJ Soul's character. No, she wasn't Lindsay. I don't remember. They have like 3 L names. Like when she's on the phone, which harkened back to that other phone call with like the chewing or the mouth open or whatever the hell it was. It's just this movie is thirsty, is I guess what I'm getting at. But I don't know why they needed to incorporate that into the violence of it all. And I think that's where a lot of the condemnation of like this the slasher franchise comes from, because it's kind of the building blocks later on of how horror films and slasher films particularly were accused of hating women, right? I think a lot of that starts here. Certainly this isn't the first to do it. Black Christmas came out a couple of years prior. But yeah, anybody have anything to add to that?
I mean, I feel like sex and horror are like always together, and I don't know if, like what you said, this was kind of the catalyst for that, but I don't know. I saw like something the other day that was like, we need more horny horror, and I feel like all horror movies are kind of just like really horny if you really look at it. And I don't know, but like it is interesting to I don't know what the time what year was this, like 70 or 80?
78.
78. Like how sex was looked in the general public, and what and I don't know, like why was it so violent towards sex, and I guess kind of what was John Carpenter saying about that. But
I do have a quote at the end of this.
Yippee!
But,
yay!
It's no less problematic. We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like what I think it's weird is this is kind of riding off of the end of the sexual liberation movement, right? And sex is suddenly more in the forefront of society as well as in movies. Yet here it's not celebrated at all. It really does seem to condemn it in a way that's more problematic than some of its other contemporaries. Like Nightmare on Elm Street, even though you do have the first guy and girl that do die during a sex scene or thereafter, Wes Craven had an elegant kind of way of viewing that, where he said that all of the characters that surrounded Nancy were just different characteristics of people trying not to cope with something, i.e. getting themselves lost in sex, or trying to run away from it as Rod does, or just eating and sleeping as Glenn did. So that's why those characters got killed off, because those are distractions. You confront the problem, which is what Nancy did. So he had like a really analytical lens with which he viewed why the people got murdered in that film. Whereas this just seems like a punishment towards the sexually active. And I think, well, it may not have been intentional. It's sort of the trend that we have lasting for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
One thing, can I just add on?
Yeah.
One thing that I was thinking about too is like with this film, I mean, Jay brought this up earlier, the amount of drinking that also takes place in this film is pretty substantial, and we're looking at a lot of teenagers.
Yeah.
And so you kind of go back to this idea of like, maybe it's this like condemning these sins that like are taking place. And so you've got people having sex, drinking, there's even smoking, which I think was pretty common during the time as well. But at the same time, it's also like, you know, is this person who is evil incarnate really just coming and condemning all of these teens for being sinful?
Yeah.
I forgot that Jamie Lee Curtis tokes in the movie too. Like,
yeah,
she passes it.
Yeah, in front of the cop
hits.
too. That was a laughable scene.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about how Sam Loomis is the worst doctor?
I hate him. I do. I know people out there really like Dr. Loomis. They do. Like you go and people have a huge fan base, but I don't get it. I don't get it. He's awful. He's terrible. And the whole movie he spends trying to be like, tell everybody, he's like, oh, it's the worst thing that could ever happen. He's the devil. But it doesn't give them any information to like track them down, or like he's like, he's been here tonight. He'll be back. I'll stay here. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Like, go with them. Do some detective work.
Yeah, growing up, I always loved the Sam Loomis character because I think Donald Pleasence is a good actor. He nails the performance.
Yeah, he is good.
But watching it now with like a more modern lens and how we have shifted our views on the mentally ill, he's just kind of the worst. He has that monologue in the beginning of the film where he's like, no, we don't need to help him. And he's like, he's too far gone. I spent 6 years trying to help him and spent the next 7 trying to keep him locked away. And it's like, wait, so because you failed, this man is like just done for. I know that the idea is he's like the incarnation of evil, but I don't know, man. That was kind of rough. Anybody else want to talk about Dr. Loomis?
His acting was just about the same way that you just said those lines. I mean, like the tone is so flat. He doesn't care. I will say, like, overall, like, I think I'd heard that the actor was like intoxicated the entire time he was filming the movie. So it was like, yeah, you put zero effort into acting the character, but at the same time, yeah, he's definitely not the best healthcare provider.
He serves as like exposition, right? That's kind of his whole point, right? He's like, otherwise it's just, I mean, with the exception of the beginning scene where he murders his sister or whatever, like Dr. Loomis is there to like provide that he's not just some random person that escaped from an asylum. He's like, there's much more to him, but it doesn't really explain what. He's just like, oh, he's evil and we need to stop him. And it's like, well, that's not the greatest exposition I've ever heard, but okay, sure.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And I feel like it's movies like this that really did put a damper on how we viewed people who had mental or dissociative disorders and whatnot for like even to today. I know we've come a long way, but at the same time, we still use words like psychopath and maniac and stuff like that in really negative ways. When if you look at the actual medical terminology, it's not necessarily that. It's our societally we've come to see that exclusively as negative and without any compassion. And that's the problem. This is the least compassionate doctor I've ever seen. Okay. Moving on to the final girl. What did people think of Laurie Strode as a final girl? Because this is where I kind of have my biggest issues. Anyone?
I mean, she
I
was
have
like
thought.
a fine character. Sorry, Will.
No, go ahead.
She was like a fine character, but what we were talking about earlier, how she's kind of like the innocent one, I guess. Just kind of puts a weird taste in the mouth, and I know that becomes the standard in a lot of horror movies that the virgin is the one that survives. But I don't know, it just like I didn't feel particularly invested in her for one reason or another. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I know who Jamie Lee Curtis is, and like I was just like, oh, this Jamie Lee Curtis. And, but I didn't really like feel too compelled by her final girl storyline.
Yeah. My issue with her is like I'm fine with the way they portray the final girl. It's a trope for a reason and stuff like that. And like I get it, but at the same time, why is she so flat? Like, uh, you don't see the building blocks to the career she's going to have from this movie. She's good in it and whatnot, but it's not like you see that this person's going to go on to win an Academy Award and be in some great art. Here, she her it's she's so kind of boring. Like I was much more invested in Annie. I thought she was a character I'd want to hang a movie around more than this one, which apparently is an unpopular opinion. I was reading the letterbox reviews and people were hating on poor Annie. But yeah, I think the only reason she's considered the greatest final girl over somebody like Nancy or Sydney or Gail or whatever is because it's Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Because between this one and Halloween 2, she's really got nothing going for her.
She's
That's my unpopular opinion.
She's kind of like we hammered the point. She's very like plain. She doesn't dress sexual. She's very like the innocent character. I mean, even everything she does, she babysits. She's good at school. She's like, I forgot my textbook or whatever. So it's kind of hammered in that she's like the innocent one, which leads to what we have and consider now, like you guys said, for it's the virgin, it's the innocent girl, it's the smart girl, whatever. She's not. My problem is that she's not like typically. She's like kind of resourceful throughout the movie. She's very like aware of her surroundings. She notices Michael like very on in the early, like in the beginning of the movie. Whether or not that's a hint to her being like her friends are just completely unaware. Like, and not to mention he drives by them with a mask on. I don't know how they didn't see his mask. I don't. In what world can you not see that? But I don't know. My problem is that they build her up to be like this. She like fights back, and she does like survive in that she like grabs the knife, she fights back, she runs, she screams. She does things that you would normally do in that situation. But my problem is that she just kind of lucks out at the end of the movie. She gets lucky and then she gets saved. So I don't understand how she's a better final girl than someone like Sydney, or whoever, because At the end, she just like Loomis pops up and is like, "Oh, I got you," and it's just like all of what you're trying to build towards for her to be this big main character that's like the pinnacle for, you know, resourceful, smart, instinct driven, you know, female characters just kind of gets thrown out the window. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then yeah, I agree. I thought like we know that she's a great actress now, but you wouldn't know that watching her then. You'd be like, I don't know. She's great in other stuff. I wouldn't say she's like exceptional in this. But then again, this could be I don't know. You would know better, Matt, if this was like her first movie or her first
this
feature.
was her first movie.
Yeah, it shows. And that's fine.
Yeah. She is a, to be clear, I don't think she's bad in the movie.
No,
I just
don't think so either.
that like you look at this and The Final Girl and say Friday the 13th 2, which is a movie I don't even like, and if I were to guess, I would think that actress probably would have had a much more luxurious career than Jamie Lee.
Yeah. I just think that they build her up and then they kind of, I don't know if they would say like a cop out, but all of it's what you're building towards is just kind of thrown out the window. And I was like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. All right. Another point that I think is really what helps to make this movie work is suburban horror and the Michael Myers of it all. And if you think about horror films that came out prior to Halloween, majority of them are ones that take place in the city, a la Your Exorcist or Jaws, things like that. Or I know that's a beach city, but like a heavily populated area. Or they're ones that are in bumblefuck nowhere, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Evil Dead and things like that. This kind of cemented the suburban horror, which is that the evil kind of could be next door. And I think that has permeated after this movie to become the norm moving forward. But at the time was like largely new and fresh. And that all comes down to Michael Myers himself being like, he's just a kid that lived down the street and something terrible happened. And what if, like, we don't know what happens next door to us. And I think that this really kind of makes that, the horror come from that in a really kind of compelling way. Anybody have anything to add to that?
I just yapped, so you guys got to say something.
If not, I can move on.
I can add on. I mean, I think that especially, you know, you were talking about like the relatability factor, right? I mean, like being in the suburban area, there's definitely a lot less of that like disconnect that I think a lot of like maybe the audience that's coming to see this movie would have. I mean, I'm even thinking about like how this movie got like to where it was finally released. Because I mean, like when they originally tried to release the movie, they were having a lot of problems with like getting people to sponsor it or theaters to like actually show it. And so, you know, going to like those neighborhoods where it's like, okay, this is like a tighter community, and being like, we want to show you this movie that's about Halloween, and being like, you know, this could be your neighborhood. I think that helped even draw an audience a little bit more for the film itself, and also make people realize like, oh wait, this could like actually happen in our neighborhood. You know.
And that was also kind of a reflection of what was happening at the time. This came out in the time of like real serial killers being relatively active. That's something that's kind of fallen by the wayside, or at least they don't get as much publicity now as they did back in the day. But it seemed like back in the 70s and 80s, there was a new serial killer popping up every 12 minutes that was getting a mounting body count in small neighborhoods and stuff like that. So I think the recognition that was an untapped market for a horror film to be set is what makes this like really kind of soar. But now it's just like something that we see every day, or every time we turn on one of these movies. Rather, back then it was relatively fresh. I wanted to take some time to discuss the look of the movie, the camera work, all that kind of stuff, because Dean Cundey shoots the fuck out of this movie. Jay, you have a little more background in cinematography. Let's hear your thoughts.
I love this movie. I like I was saying earlier about the story and everything. I mean, it's kind of simple. It's very formulaic. I mean, maybe now looking at it now, since we've seen everything since, but this movie is so insanely shot. Like I'm being real with you. I asked you earlier about like what, because this is one of the first times they use the Steadicam, like the Panaglide, and I don't know. I asked you how big that thing was, especially for the opening scene.
Yeah, I don't know how big it is. I never found that out, but I did find out for you what the specific camera is. But
Yeah,
keep going.
I feel bad for that poor guy having to lug that thing around, or whoever like the director for photography. But I guess a good starting point is to your first point about it being in suburbia. All of the daytime shots are shot so plainly. They're like almost overexposed. They're too bright. It's just kind of like blah. It looks good. There's a lot of long takes, which really help build and build. And that's what the whole movie does. Like the movie is, if you don't want to call it a slasher, it's definitely a suspense thriller. And then as it goes into the nighttime, you can tell even from the beginning how light is the most important thing, because you even have like the penultimate scene where he appears from the shadow into the frame. It's so good. Like it's like one of the best things I've ever seen. Probably one of like top jump scares of all time. And even with Laurie, right? Like she's lit half and half, where like half of her is in the darkness, half of her exposed. Even when she walks across, like the blocking for even the beginning scene, all of that stuff, they're probably just following them around with lights the whole time. It's so well done. Like I was like, I wasn't even paying attention to the movie half the time. I'm just like, dude, how are they doing this the whole time? And then also like I like that this movie is like, you'll see how some stuff is lit, but the rest of the screen is just like black. Like everything's like getting slowly swallowed with darkness the whole movie. Even to when she's in the house, you know, he gets into like a corner or a hallway or a door or whatever. It's like, you know something bad is about to happen, and that builds to the suspense of the scene. And she'll go from a well-lit room, her back is facing to a door, and then she's the only thing in frame. And you're waiting for something to pop out, you know, and eventually it does. But yeah, no, this movie is, the guy who did this, what'd you say his name? Dean Cundey?
Yeah, Dean Cundey.
Oh my god, bro. Fantastic. I was like so blown away for the time too. It was nuts.
It's not lost on me that this is the man who went on to shoot like Back to the Future, Jurassic Park. Like
yeah,
he's doing The Mandalorian right now.
Yeah.
Like he has quite a wide breadth of cinematic achievements under his belt. But it all started here. This was his first, as far as I can remember.
It's crazy you say that, because I love all of those things you just said.
Yeah.
Even The Mandalorian, which I know you don't like, but I love that too.
It's okay. It's not the look of the movie or the show that.
No, yeah. They really do a good job though. Like the way they use like the static, like the wide shots. Even like the aspect ratio of the movie is different than like a traditional widescreen film, which I thought was interesting and did well. But yeah, I don't know. That was like, you could sit here and talk all day about, you know, what they were thinking when they shot this and why they did it that way. But I just thought visually it was really good. And I never really see that in horror movies anymore. Sometimes I do. It's very rare, but you know, they spent a lot of time with that. So I enjoyed it for that part alone.
Yeah.
I could watch it with just the score and that, you know, like the score is
That was-
amazing. Like I don't even
That was
need
the next
acting.
thing I was going to touch
Yeah.
on.
I don't even need acting. I could just have that, the score, and you know, the stupid kills, and I would be like, this is amazing.
Yeah, I was going to talk about next. The score of this movie is probably even more iconic than Michael Myers himself. It's a stunning score that's unrelenting. It just does not stop. Um, Will, that's kind of why I had you on this. You have more of a musical expertise. Did you have anything to contribute to the score?
Oh, absolutely. I also love the score of this film. Um, I'll be honest, it kind of pisses me off that John Carpenter can just come in and be like, "Oh, I'm a film director, but also I write music," and do both things so well. I there there's I don't know if you guys know, the musical idea is called a motif.
Mhm.
And so something that Carpenter does really well is take a motif, which could be any musical idea, and just spread it out throughout the entire film. And so having things like the iconic main theme uh, come back in different parts to kind of let the viewer know that something is happening, something is being unsettled, and like kind of play with the audience's emotions a little bit. He does that really well, but he also does something else really well, which is hard to do in film: silence. Sometimes you
Mhm.
want to just write music throughout the whole thing, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it's better to just have nothing. And so he was able to really figure out the balance for that. And I think this movie does that really well. There are some movies, not going to call any movies out right now, but there are some movies that will do too much during an action sequence, or the
Yeah.
hits are at the wrong spot, or even like sound design wise, something is just not right. And I think once again, something that draws me into this movie every season is like this whole idea of a really well developed and done score.
Yeah. I think the score in this film is kind of perfect. And it's something they've never replicated in any of the Halloween sequels. There's some that have fine scores, and some of the ones even that John Carpenter did the score to are good, but it's never quite as like pitch perfect as this. I think the
20
the greatest moment of music in this movie is during Annie's death, where you have the long period of silence. The only music is that "Oh Paul" song she's singing as she's going back and forth to the garage, and you get that great jump scare where suddenly the door is open, and she's like, "Hey, that's weird. Why is it all foggy?" and starts like wiping the window, and then you hit the musical note that if you're not ready for it, is shit your pants loud, and and then you have like the haunting music that plays kind of afterwards. It's great.
I wonder, you might know, Will, if there's any significance to like the tempo of the theme music too, because it seems like fast, like not more traditional time, and they do it at times when it's like, you know, shit's going down, and I feel like it's been faster than regular time for music. I don't know anything about like that, but it seems that
Yeah,
it is that way to like make us
there
scared.
there's a cool like percussive underlying steady eighth note that like essentially is the bottom foundation of the main theme. And so obviously he's doing like the dun, 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 dun,
Hmm.
dun, 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 dun thing on top, but you have this like
Yeah,
that's going on underneath. And I think, I mean, it's kind of funny because there's a train in the middle of the movie, but it has like this whole train feel to it where it's like, okay, we're like setting into this like movement based idea of like a really I don't know, significant theme.
yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, it was written in a rare 5/4 time signature that John Carpenter learned from his father,
Yeah,
and
it
he would
sounded like
apparently
fast.
do that on set and whatnot.
That's funny.
Well, I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. And I suppose we should talk about Michael Myers himself. Michael Myers is an interesting character in this film because he's an extreme threat level that you're constantly hearing about. Eventually you see, but how he just lingers in the background of shots is pretty spectacular. He's iconic because he is just that. He's just a shape. He has no meaning. He's kind of like the Terminator, where he's just remorseless coming for you. And that's something that has been completely neutered by all sequels, who either turns him into a strict killer who doesn't stalk. I think the thing that makes him interesting in this is he studies his victims for a whole hour of screen time before he picks them off. And to be clear, we also don't know how long he was watching his sister and the boyfriend in the beginning of the movie. It just picks up with his POV. The suggestion is he could have been doing this for years prior to that. But in all sequels, he's just constantly killing people. He's not watching them at all. Halloween H2O is the only one where he is treated like a stalker first and then killer. Of all the sequels, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, he's been neutered by the sequels with the familial lineage, or just making him a mindless murder hound in Halloween Kills and Ends. And I don't stand by those movies as much. Any other thoughts on the Michael Myers of it all?
That's disappointing to hear that he loses stalker. I guess, I don't know, his stalkerness. That's what I found like the most interesting about this movie, and why it was so interesting visually, because he was just like a lingering figure for so much of it, and it is what made it like anxiety inducing, and he was a good character and a good killer because of that. And I don't know, I really enjoyed like the POV shots, and just like how the lighting kind of weirdly spotlighted him but like also hit him, and it just that's disappointing to hear. I haven't seen any of the other ones. Like we said earlier, this is my first time watching this one. And so I was really enjoying how like slow and anxious it was, because he was a stalker, or is a stalker. And yeah, that just makes him an interesting character, and a very fun one to watch, in my opinion.
What I would recommend to you, and I guess we can all give our opinions on this, but because Halloween's famous for having multiple timelines, right? There's the John Carpenter timeline, which is Halloween, Halloween 2, and then the Halloween 3, which is dissociated from this. It's an anthology film without Michael Myers at all.
Yeah.
There's the Thorn timeline, which is Halloween 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, that explains why Michael Myers did what he did. There's the Halloween H2O timeline, which is Halloween, Halloween 2, H2O, which I think is really good, and then Halloween Resurrection, which might be the worst Halloween movie ever.
That's true.
And then there's the David Gordon Green timeline, which is Halloween, and then Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, I personally think the Halloween 2, and H2O are my trilogy to watch. I don't like Halloween 2 almost at all, but it makes necessary for Halloween H2O to exist. And I think that one's the closest in tone to this one, while also being very screamy, because Kevin Williamson co-wrote it uncredited. And I guess that's the one I would recommend to you. What do these other cats have to say?
I mean, I Look. I would watch, if I was you, it's the opposite of this movie. That's like, this one's very tame and it's all about suspense driven. I don't mind the Rob Zombie Halloween.
And then that's the other timeline is there's the Rob Zombie, which is just Rob Zombie's Halloween and its sequel H2. But keep going.
What I will say, with the caveat being, it is exactly what this movie isn't in everything it does. It does give some good backstory, which is not really backstory because it's kind of in its own world. But overall, I quite enjoyed that movie, and it's still quite well done, but it's not anything you like about this movie. That movie just won't have.
So this movie is very much from like Laurie's perspective, right?
Yeah,
there's a softness to it. There's we talk about the visual beauty, and there's a subtlety to it. Rob Zombie does not understand any of those concepts, and it is the most unsubtle, abrasive, in-your-face, violent gore fest.
Yeah, it's bad.
But at the same time, it's a movie entirely from Michael Myers' point of view.
Yeah.
Like, you spend almost a full hour with Michael Myers as a child in that movie.
Yeah.
And it explains why he does what he does. And it's a hard watch. It's brutal, but I also think that's my second favorite Halloween movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it is brutal though. But
yeah, especially the director's cut has a really unfortunate R scene that I guess happens, but is I
never watched that. I never watched the director's cut. I only watched the TV version, so I probably got censored.
You've only seen the TV version?
No, I mean, like, the first time I watched it, I only saw the TV version. And then I watched it on DVD. I don't think when I watched it, was the director's cut still. But there were some scenes that were too long. Not that scene, because I don't remember that one, but like the scene with the kids in the woods was like just so long. I'm like, damn, bro, I'm about to cry. This shit is too much, man.
It's brutal. The R scene in question is that some of the guards at the mental institution are just trying to get a rise out of Michael, and they are attacking a poor girl that's in like one of the next rooms in front of him, and just to see if he'd react to it. And like Rob Zombie put it in there because he was reading an article where that actually happened, so he's like, yeah, that'd probably get a rise out of somebody. So that was the catalyst for the breakout.
I quite like Michael in that version too. He's very much like he leans into like the supernatural-esque part of what makes him so ominous and threatening. I mean, the guy that plays him in that movie is just like gigantic too, and they frame him as
such. Like 6'6".
He's just a monster. I mean, he makes Danny Trejo look small, and Danny Trejo is like also like a pretty badass dude too. So he's also in that movie.
Will, what's your take? Which timeline do you go?
I know it's unpopular. I have some enjoyment of the newer trilogy, and I think, especially if you tie the first movie in and then just completely get rid of Halloween Ends, you can really enjoy that as a trilogy. That's the fair. Only thing is they rewrite the ending of the first movie in this. It's either in the second movie or the last one.
It's in the second one.
Okay, so they having that rewritten, you kind of have to like reroute your brain a little bit. But I think, especially posing Halloween 1978 versus Halloween 2016, I believe.
2018.
2018. Thank you. Right next to each other. I think you kind of get a better idea of like, Laurie has this crazy character development, which I think is really interesting. But if you look at it as a traumatic experience, which I think most of us would say it was, she really hunkers herself down and shuts herself away from her family, and then they play into that in the second movie by Michael just going full ape shit, if you will, and just killing all sorts of people, and so you can see the brutality side of what is or what could be Michael Myers, but then you can also see the stalker side of Michael Myers, and you get a cool character development.
I don't think it's unpopular. I like some of the newer Halloweens for sure. Not Ends, but yeah.
The
I have a
biggest
very
problem with
specific thought, but you keep going.
yeah, the biggest problem with Ends is it's got that whole. I was just telling Matt that I watched Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and it has the same idea where they try and turn someone else into Michael Myers.
Yeah.
And it's done so poorly. I mean, like, Michael is still this brutal killer that was left off in Halloween Kills, but like he is trying to make somebody else do his job for him, and you know, part of that is because of how weak he's become, but at the same time, it's like you go through that movie just to watch him get shredded.
Yeah.
And it's like,
So-
you know, if that's the only way you can kill him, like what?
Briefly, while we're on the subject, I'll address my thoughts on the David Gordon Green. I think there are neat ideas in it, and I'm not a big fan of the 2018 Halloween. Outside of, I think it has a really solid 15 minutes where it's just kind of her versus him, and she is his boogeyman. I think that is a neat concept, and I think a lot of what people like about that movie is really just that last 15 minutes, because it is incredible. That being said, Michael should have stayed dead in that basement, and the core concept of Halloween Kills still works if Michael Myers isn't in it, and it's that the threat of what he represents, the curse of Michael Myers, if you will permeate through the town, and it causes the townspeople to start killing anybody in a mask. This happens in the film, but if you make the whole movie about that and societal violence and how people jump on the bandwagon to attack others because of the threat that they supposedly represent, makes for a really good movie. And I think the idea of that still is in Halloween Kills and makes that the best of the three movies, I think. But also, Halloween Ends works if Michael Myers never came out of that basement, and tells the story of how a town will manufacture their own boogeyman, and it ties it into the theme of this one, which is every town has one, and maybe that threat is gone. You'll just make a new one because they have to. And so I didn't necessarily have a problem with that random dude becoming the killer. It became a problem once Michael Myers showed up and became his like spirit guide. And they like have that moment where they lock eyes and they're like, "What, you have crazy people eyes? I did too. What? Let's do this." And when they team up, that was that may also be the worst Halloween movie is Halloween Ends.
It's really
All right.
bad.
I wish they would have done what they did in the second David Gordon Green in Halloween 2. Because you can watch Halloween 2 right after this one. It does the same thing. It's the same timeline that the David Gordon Green ones does. It's like Halloween night ends and then into the next. Well, the night keeps going apparently, but yeah, I wish they would have done that in Halloween 2 because Halloween 2 is not great either. But yeah.
No, I think it's worth seeing just because it makes Halloween H2O relevant. And there's a big surprise that happens in that movie that comes into play in that one. But yeah. We'll move on to the fun facts and trivia about this movie. Jay, to answer your question, this film was shot using a Panavision Panaflex camera with a Panavision C-series anamorphic lens, and also utilizing Steadicam, which was new at the time. Half of the budget was spent on the camera for this movie. Touching on budget, it had a $300,000 budget. So $150,000 went towards the cameras. $20,000 went towards Donald Pleasence. The rest went wherever else the money went. But that $300,000 movie went on to gross $47 million, which made it the highest grossing independent film of all time. And it held that record until 1990, when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles dethroned it. Which, that tickled me. Psycho had a massive influence on this film. Sam Loomis is named after one of the lead characters in Psycho, and Jamie Lee Curtis was cast because she is the daughter of Janet Leigh, who famously died in the Psycho's shower scene. The filmmakers felt that they could use that publicity to boost the film's reputation. Additionally, Scream uses the last name Loomis as a nod to this film, and its counterpart, Scream 2022, gives us a character, gives that character daughter named Samantha, thus giving us yet another Sam Loomis in 3 separate franchises. Debra Hill wrote most, if not all, of the dialogue for the female characters. John Carpenter's contribution was centered on all of Sam Loomis's speeches, as well as the horror scenes. The mask used in this film is very famously a Captain Kirk mask, bleached white, and the hair dyed dark brown. William Shatner was not aware of this and sued them for using his likeness without permission. The compensation was settled out of court, and he donated all of his settlement to charity. But whenever there is a new Halloween movie in theaters, William Shatner usually takes to social media to encourage people to check out his latest film. Lastly is a quote about the movie. This is the one that I had to sit there for quite some time and digest. John Carpenter himself dismisses the notion that Halloween is a morality play regarding it as merely a horror film. According to John Carpenter, critics completely missed the point. He explains, "The one girl who is the most sexually uptight just keeps stabbing the guy with a long knife. She's the most sexually frustrated. She's the one that's killed him. Not because she's a virgin, but because all that sexually repressed energy starts coming out. She uses those phallic symbols on the guy." And I don't think, first of all, that's just straight up not true. He does not die and has to be saved by a man who, like, does that suggest that Sam Loomis is also sexually frustrated, which is why he, like, blows his load 6 times at Michael? Like, what? This is a quote that is called "grasping at straws," I believe. Like, just because there's criticism hurled at this movie doesn't mean it's a bad movie, right? Like, what does anybody say about John Carpenter's little quote here?
Speechless.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, I know he directed the movie, but I don't agree with that. It just, I'm trying to formulate the words. I got nothing. It just feels like it did not read as sexual repression at all.
No.
No.
And like you said, he didn't even die. It very much read as the virgin girl survives, and especially with everyone dying immediately after having sex. It's just it feels silly to say that it reads as anything other than like punishing people for having sex.
Like, yeah, right. I'll lean into the Wes Craven quote from Nightmare on Elm Street where he said that, like, all of this is a distraction, and the people that die in this are distracted over sex, right? Annie's like looking to pick up Paul, and the Bob and PJ Soul's character, whose name escapes me, they are killed in the anticipation of sex. But so sex is a distraction, but I don't think that says anything about Laurie, right? And you don't get the idea that she's sexually frustrated. You get more of the idea that she's just kind of a hanger-on. Like, I don't understand why she hangs out with those like annoying people.
Yeah,
Anyway,
they're not good friends, right? Like,
no. The one girl pawns off the girl she's watching over at somebody else's house so she could go pick up her boyfriend. That they will come back to the house and do things.
yeah.
Well, is she gonna bring the girl back to the house? And
The
then
other
that
two are-
weird
the-
comment that
yeah.
PJ Souls had, or no, it was Bob, about how they're gonna strip each other's clothes off and then strip her clothes off. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, that was. I was like wondering who they were talking about. I'm like, oh, it's the and they just show up there too. They're like, oh yeah, dude, we're gonna go to their house that she's babysitting at and party. It's like, damn, bro, I'd be pissed. No wonder you're thinking the owners of that house would be so mad. Or their house is just a party murder house. You know?
Yeah. All right. So ultimately, how many horny babysitters would you give this movie? I'll start. I will give this movie 4 out of 5 horny babysitters. I think it is a stunningly well-made, if ultimately simple film that I could pick apart and dissect its lesser qualities kind of forever, but that does not discredit all the genuine quality put into this film and how it formed an entire genre thereafter. Yes, Psycho, Black Christmas, these are movies that came before. This movie cemented the genre as is and kind of spawned my favorite genre of horror. So I do give it quite a bit of credit. And 4 horny babysitters next.
Oh, I agree with that. I think it's not without its faults. It does have some things that I could sit here, like you said, and nitpick. So I'd give it 4.5 horny babysitters.
I'm gonna go on that 5 out of 5 horny babysitters. Like I said, this is a iconic movie for me. There's a reason I come back to it every year. But it has its flaws, and I think you can't start if we're gonna talk about this movie being so iconic and developing and helping push forward the slasher genre, you got to give it credit where it's due.
True.
I would give it 4 out of 5 horny babysitters. Yeah, I think it's great. Even though I have my critiques of it, it is very much like a foundational horror film, and it's naive to watch this, like knowing all we know about the horror genre now without acknowledging that this is like why so many of those things are the way they are.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming on this podcast. I'm going to shill my crap for a minute. I have a film journal, which you can pick up on Amazon. I will link that down in the description box down below. And all it is a series of prompts based on a movie that you select. And it's pretty fun. I hope you check it out. And the next time that the Why We Horror podcast meets, we are going to discuss Five Nights at Freddy's sometime in November. That is coming at you. Thanks, everybody, for being a guest on the show today, and happy Halloween. Bye, everybody.